today's project with a couple of colors from the leftover yarn basket. They reminded me of the little sheep, and having been knitting with wool and felting this season a lot, I'm not surprised that's what these two reminded me of. So I thought, let's use them to make one more tiny knit project with our leftovers. But first, let's take a look at a picture of sheep before we start working. I really liked this little picture of a sheep with two little lambs, and it shows the nice fluffy coat on this big sheep and the softness of the lamb and their coats, and we can clearly see their legs and the ears and the tone of color, knowing that it's gonna vary. And of course they're a different breed of sheep, but with the yarn that I have left over, I thought I'm gonna look at this picture. We're going to get our knitting needles and the yarn, and you will learn a simple pattern for a four-legged animal which you can adapt. So I hope you'll enjoy making this project. It is a very simple knit, and it's also something you could teach children. If you have children in your family and you'd like to teach them to knit, and they would like to make a little figure, this might be the project. I wanted to teach you this simple project before other ways of knitting four-legged animals because of its simplicity and because you can adapt it to make other types of four-legged animals with different colors and different numbers of rows and stitches. So let's begin knitting. We will get a long length of yarn for the tail, and we will cast on 24 stitches. It will be a tiny knit. So for the yarn that I have, I'm using needles that will make a tight knit. These are 3.5 millimeters, I believe. But you will want to match the yarn that you have. So when you start knitting, if you think that the work is too loose, start over. You want it to be very tight so that the figure and the toy will not have wool peeking through. You see how here we did this little mouse in a previous project, and we knit it so tightly that the wool stuffing does not bleed through. So that's our goal here as well. If your yarn is for 4 millimeter needles, for example, go a little thinner with your needles to make a tighter knit. All right, here we go. 24 stitches for this tiny knit. Okay, I'm going to imagine you did not learn how to cast on. Just to help you, this approach works well for these tight knit projects that make tiny little toys. So you will drape your yarn like this. Make a little twist. Your index finger and your thumb go inside that little space below the twist. You'll secure the loop with your finger here. Pull down your needles. Under, lead, grab, go back the same way. Now, depending on your yarn, this may really be secure as 2 stitches, or you may have to take this strand and pull it over and then pull and secure it as 1. I prefer to do this because the corner is much cleaner when it's time to sew the things together. But if you forget to do it, it's okay to say, I just have 2 stitches to start with. Okay, the 2 strands go here, Index finger and thumb go inside. Secure this loop, under, over, grab, come back, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. Our cast on row is finished. We do have a long tail. Save it, it will be very helpful for sewing. Now we're going to knit 8 rows. This will be what's called a garter stitch. You will see some patterns telling you work garter stitch. What does that mean? That means that in every row you are making knit stitches. No purl stitches, only knit stitches. You can knit this first stitch in the first row, but I would suggest always slipping the first stitch after the first row. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We always want to count when we do the first row to make sure we have the right number. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. This is row 1. 7 more rows. Remember, every row knit stitch. Slip the first stitch, put the yarn to the back and knit. Even though stitches want you to purl them, you will knit. Row 2. Turn your work. Row 3. Slip the first stitch and knit to the end. Knit, don't purl. Row 3. Turn your work. Slip the first stitch and knit. Row 4. Turn. Row 5. Slip and knit to the end. Turn. Row 6. Slip and knit to the end. Turn. Row 7. Slip and knit to the end. Turn your work. Row 8. Slip and knit to the end. All right, so these will be the legs, the rear legs of our animal. We're working on the little sheep, obviously, with this type of leftover yarn, but you will see by the time you finish this project, you will see how you can adapt by the number of stitches and number of decreases to various types of four-legged animals. So now we want to decrease. So we're going to cast off 6 stitches. So I will slip 1, knit 1. I want to jump the first over the second. With my boucle yarn, it's kind of tricky sometimes because it will catch on itself. Okay, that's 1. 2. 3. 4. 5. And 6. See, this will be the leg later. We'll sew it like that. Now we knit to the end. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. You always want to count after changing the number of stitches to make sure you still are on the right track. Now we will cast off 6 from this side. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Now I have 12 stitches. I'm going to work 6 more rows, still keeping the garter stitch and knitting every direction. So this is one of the 6. Slip the first stitch, turn, second row of 6, slip the first stitch, turn, third row of 6, slip the first, knit to the end, turn, fourth row of 6, turn, 5th row of 6, turn, 6th row of 6. Now we need to add back the stitches to make the front legs. So we are going to twist on the stitches like this. So I'll hold the yarn, I'll put it around my finger. With the needle, I will catch it from this side and just twist it on. 1. Let's do that again. 2. Again. 3. 4. 5. 6. I turn and I carefully work to knit each of these. You will see how they are just twisted around, so you're going to catch them from the front. That way they're not going to unravel on you. You're knitting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Now we need to put back 6 again. In the same way, we'll just twist them on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now we knit the second row. Remember again, they're just twisted on, so you don't want them to get lost. You work 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We should have 24 now. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. Now we need to do 6 more rows and 24 stitches. Row 1. We continue to slip the first stitch, and we continue to use garter stitch, which means you are knitting in every row and you don't need to purl at all. Turn row 2 of 6. Turn row 3 of 6. Turn row 4 of 6. Turn row 5 of 6. Turn and do row 6 of 6. Right, there we go. We have the legs, the body. Now we are going to decrease to transition into the neck, head, and nose. You see how simple this one is. I told you this was going to be a super simple pattern that you can adapt and teach little ones to do as well. So now we cast off 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Work to the end. Turn, cast off 8 from this side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Work to the end. There are 8 stitches now. We're going to work 12 rows. Garter stitch. That is 12 rows. I'm going to cut off this white yarn, and I will join this beige yarn for 4 rows. Now remember how the face had a little bit of a different color tone on the nose? That's what we're doing here. So we're going to knit. That's one. Let's do 4 rows with this one. If you want to make the black nosed sheep, you could use black instead of this beige, and it will give you a black nosed sheep breed. This is row number 4, and then I'm going to cast off. And we will cut this off as well. It's time to get the sewing needle and some stuffing. Okay, so where to begin sewing? We are going to begin sewing at the nose. We'll just fold it in, and remember we're going to turn this inside out. So with that in mind, yep, it's gonna work. Okay, so put it back out. Take some of the other tail beige to secure and to use for sewing a couple of more stitches here. I would not trim these short. I would leave them on the inside in the stuffing. Should your toy ever need repair, it's going to be much easier. All right, so this seam is going down the middle. Now here you're going to use the stuffing and your finger to shape the neck and the head. And the last few stitches will not be used for sewing, but for securing that shape in place. That will be important because you don't want it to end up being just a very long piece. You want it to be shaped down this way. And then the rest will go like this, you see? Okay, so now with your finger in here and outside, you're putting in the stuffing. And then there will be a couple of stitches that are going to secure that shape for us. Putting in the stuffing with your finger. Okay, you're checking. So I come up here on top of the neck, and then I come down, just straight down on the bottom of the neck. And you see, I'm going to push this in. So I need to catch a stitch like that and pull it. When I pull it, it's going to pull it down. And I need to do that again. See, I'm putting it here, skip a little bit, go over. And when I pull that tight, it's going to pull the shape in place. Okay, and now I'm going to come back up. I'm going to leave this for later. I may need to adjust the shaping a little bit. Okay. And then we'll come back to put the ears on our lamb. Okay, so now we need to get the legs and the belly. So here I'm going to do this. Leave this long tail. I'm going to come up. I will do a whip stitch, catching the outside. With boucle yarn, it really hides nicely. You don't need to worry about turning things inside out. It's a very forgiving type of animal and type of yarn to work with. And then you're going to put it back in, feed it all the way through, pull out the needle, then you're going to get some wool to stuff the leg. You can use the knitting needle to push it in. If it's too sharp like mine, you may want to do this, but I prefer to use my hands, so you can use your pinky finger. Or your index finger. You don't want to be this too empty because you want to be able to make it stand. Alright, we're still good, doing well. So now we already have some wool here. Now we're going to put this little tail inside, take the long tail, put it into the needle. Okay, we gotta go over to the other leg, but we can't just jump over. We have to weave our way up this way. This is also a time when you're looking what happened with your knitting. If there's anything you want to correct, or if you see that there's a little stretched stitch somewhere, this is a good time to fix it. Okay, I'm at the base of this leg, so I'm going to fold this over and do the whip stitch again. And I feed the needle and the yarn through the leg and out here. I get some of this wool and I push it into the leg. Again, feel free to use a knitting needle or even a pencil might work. Your fingers. Make sure that the legs are not too empty, so that there's enough substance for the figure to be able to stand. Like that. We'll fold the head down a little more. I need more wool in this leg here. All right, let's see what's happening. I need to start closing the belly here. Okay, now we gotta close the belly and add more wool. Pay attention to the stitches that you had knitted. If some of them stretch or are loose, do a couple of sewing passes in the same place to close them. Okay, we add some wool to the belly part. Now we gotta close the legs in the back. There we go. some wool into this leg. Now this one we want to have wool inside while we do it. It's going to be a little trickier, but it's possible. Trying to turn the work so that you can see the most of it. It's really tricky to give you a good view at this stage of the project. Okay, so now we gotta make sure we have some wool so we don't sew it closed without the stuffing. Don't be afraid of having a lot in there. It's easier to pull it out. Closing the last parts here. Now you can make these in different sizes. You can have the lamb and the sheep. You can add details. You can add the horns for the ram. You can do the same process you're learning here and then adjust and customize. Make a whole little herd. A flock of your own. Right, we're going to leave this here to remind us that they need a tail, even though people often forget that our little sheep will need a tail. We need to come back here to the front. Oh, she's grazing already, but we need to get this shaped a little more. So we will get this here. And we'll get a stitch in here and come back up. Then we'll come from here down to the front and again through the forehead, all the way through the head, down here. And this stitch we will pull back this way. There we go. She's grazing on the grass. Alright, she's gonna start looking more and more like a sheep as we add details, I promise. Okay, there will be a little tail. We need to get the little ears on. There are a couple of different ways you could, if you know how to crochet, you could get a crochet hook and crochet little ears on. We have to remember how those ears are coming out to the side. So we're gonna go this way and get 2 stitches. Remember how we looked at that picture and the ears were coming out to the sides? So that's what we're gonna try. We're gonna try to get these 2 stitches like this. One, 2. I can turn and I can make 2 from this first one. 1, 2, and here is 3. I'll turn. 1, 2, 3. That's my little ear. Okay, now we 1, and we're going to cast off the second. There we go. And now knit 2 together. Actually, no, cast off 1. Sorry, I said knit 2 together. That was wrong. Just do it like this. And now we're going to get the second ear, but first finish this one. Here's our little ear for our little sheep. I'm not going to attach the eyes, but you can if you want to. And we turn it around, we know where to go. We placed the stitch over and we pick up 2 stitches with the needle sideways. Place the ear. 1, 2. I need to get rid of this tail before I knit. And whenever I weave in a tail on these little miniatures, I always think, how can I help it shape my figure so that no stitch is wasted in a sense. Okay, let's make this little ear the same way. Here's the second little ear. Okay, we do the tail and then we take our little lamb, our little sheep, depending on how large your project turns out. We take it outside to the grass to see how successful our project is. What does it look like outside? And the tail. Here we go. We're going to use this long line. And we will do the I cord, which you learned to make when you were knitting a mouse. So here I'm going to pick up some stitches. 1, 2, 3. Okay. And we just cord knitting. 1, 2, 3, slide over, 1, 2, 3, slide over, 1, 2, 3, slide over. So you notice now, when I advise you to leave a long tail when you're casting on, there's always a little bit of reason why. And you can have only 2 stitches for this cord if your yarn is very bulky. You can make it longer. Okay, I think this should be a good length. Let's do one more and then cast off. I did not count the rows on this. You will just have to keep looking and decide when the length that you have is good for your project. It's going to vary so much with your tension, with your type of yarn, that it's better not to go with an exact number of rows for this I-cord, but to actually just really look and pay attention. Okay, so we know that the sheep tail is not like this, it goes down. We're going to use these little here things to make sure it's positioned the way it should be. So we'll come back up. And here. Now we're going to make it go down. To the body, like this. Now it's going down. Okay, now we can get these into the stuffing, felt them in there. Just make sure you don't lose your needle in there. And the last little bit that needs to be taken care of before we can go outside to see what our little sheep is like when it goes outside. would be great to know in the comments if you decide to make this project. Also, if you decide to make more than one, have a whole flock or herd, or have some lamb. Maybe find a way to add horns, have a ram. I don't know. Are you going to make lambs and mama sheep and more of them? Let's go outside and see what it's going to look like outside when it's playtime. It is spring. It's very fun to see these little creations. There she is. Our little sheep grazing at the grass.